Hello and welcome to Press TV Spotlight. I'm Marcia Hashemi. Thanks so much for being with us. Well, the second round of indirect talks between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States have been held in Rome. Now, according to the Iranian foreign minister, the talks have been positive, and a third round will be held with Oman continuing to be the mediator. As Iran continues to soar with its technological accomplishments in many fields, is it possible the U.S. president is sorry for leaving the previous deal, since Iran has advanced tremendously since then? And can positive talks turn into positive action by Washington and lead to the removal of illegal sanctions imposed on Iran? Well, these are just some of the questions we'll be looking at in this spotlight. I'd like to welcome my guests to the program. Reza Vedadi, academic researcher and author out of Muscat. And Leila Hatoum, editor-in-chief, MENA Uncensored, out of Beirut. Thank you both for being with me. Let me start this off in Oman with Reza. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said that the talks today were positive. What are your thoughts so far that the two sessions have been held between the parties so far? Seems to be positive.
So it's an interesting situation because you have the initial meeting last week, which we discussed, was in Oman. And there was this discussion, would it be in Oman or would it be in Italy? And then it was held in Italy. And Steve Witkoff apparently had a meeting with Israeli officials before he conducted the meeting with Dr. Araghchi. And Dr. Araghchi was in Russia yesterday before his arrival to Italy to have the meeting in the Omani embassy, I believe, Omani compound. And he had taken a special letter from Ayatollah Khamenei to Putin before arriving. And then there was also the meeting of the defense minister of Saudi Arabia in Iran. So a lot has happened since last week. And we still see in the news, like I read in the Reuters today, that Israeli officials are still planning to do some kind of attack on Iranian nuclear sites, even without the assistance of the United States. And now that we know that's impossible, because they require United States to allow them to fly over Iraq as they have access to Iraqi airspace. So a lot has been thrown into the narrative, into the media side, into the side where the soft power side of kind of like chaotic stuff that's happening, which I think in the background kind of work to support each other and Iran's situation. Iran's much stronger than 10 years ago when the first JCPOA took place, militarily, and its relations with Russia and China. 10 years ago, China and Russia were watering down the United Nations Security Council resolutions against Iran. Now they would oppose it. And not only oppose it, but if there is some kind of military conflict, they are more likely to take the side of Iran. Not necessarily maybe providing military soldiers or anything like that, but providing weapons or providing economic aid. And the reason that is because in the last 3-4 months, the mask of United States policy towards these countries has completely been removed, with the tariffs and with these kind of negotiations for a ceasefire that never kind of came to fruition with Russia and Ukraine. These two countries have realized in the last several years, especially in the last several months, the United States cannot be trusted, and so they're looking towards this triangle of Iran, Russia, and China. And I think Iran has that strength, and so when it goes into negotiations, it's in a much better position.
Okay. Well, Leila, your thoughts. Do you think that Iran's strength and influence demonstrated, especially during the last year, and its military advancements as well as its 2 missile strikes against the Zionist regime, has proven to the U.S. that Tehran is a force to be reckoned with, and that is also the reason that Washington wants to talk to Iran at this time? How do you see it?
Well, basically, you do know that there's no dispute that Iran is one of the largest countries in the Middle East, and it's one of the strongest military-wise. It has lots of allies in different countries, and that gives it an edge over most of the countries that are in the Middle East. As well, it has basically an organized military that has advanced weapons, strategic weapons, and we saw the extent of those weapons during Truthful 1 and Truthful 2 Promise, Truthful Promise 1, Truthful Promise 2, when they actually managed to send ballistic missiles, hypersonic missiles, and drones from Tehran all the way, or from Iran all the way to the occupied Palestinian territories, hitting Israeli bases with accuracy. So at the end of the day, the Americans and the Israelis and their allies in the Middle East, they do calculate the possible harm that Iran can do onto them if they attack it. When it comes to negotiations, this is a leverage for Iran. They actually are negotiating from a peer perspective. So like they are equals, they're not under, right? So when you look at the whole situation, the Iranians have also defense agreements with Russia. That doesn't necessarily mean that the Russians are going to intervene military-wise, but they can supply the Iranians with expertise and support, military, basically technical support. Same thing with the Chinese. So at the end of the day, it has those allies that can support its back when it comes to on the international level. And it has allies in the Middle East that can actually constitute pressure cards on the Americans, their bases, their interests in the region, as well as the Israelis and the European bases in the region.
Okay, well, Reza, how can Tehran ensure that any talks do not end the same way as JCPOA, with Iran implementing its side, but the other parties failing to stand by their commitments?
I remember about a year or two ago when there was some negotiation under President Raisi's administration, Ayatollah Khamenei made it clear that it has to be proven negotiations, and each part of the negotiation, the deal, has to be proven before Iran proceeds. In the previous 10 years ago, when Iran accepted the JCPOA, they quickly, acted on their part and on their obligations, and somehow believed that the United States and the West would also be truthful to their part of the obligation, which never happened, right? So on this occasion, that was a lesson that was learned by Iran. And another thing that Iran has decided to do is maintain its capabilities and keep them within Iran. So there's this discussion at the moment. I think on Wednesday they're going to be doing the technical negotiations between the nuclear experts on how Iran can verify its program is. I mean, it's ridiculous in the whole instance is ridiculous. Iran has to prove that it's not making a nuclear weapon. Usually in any court of justice, in any court of land, in any country, in any part of the world, the person who makes a claim of guilt against someone else or a crime has to prove the crime.
Right.
In this case, Iran for the past 20 years has been trying to prove that it's innocent of building something that it's not building. In any case, even though we know that the United States secret service and its secret service apparatus, national service apparatus, has confirmed that Iran is not diverting or making plans to make a nuclear weapon, and this was 2-3 weeks ago under Tulsi Gabbard. So what Iran is doing now, I believe, is that saying, look, if we made 60% uranium enrichment, we're going to keep this in Iran. We're not going to give it to a third country. We're not going to put cement in any of our facilities, destroy them. We'll go gradually, step by step, and also America has to do the same, which is a big lesson that unfortunately was very expensive, but Iran learned that way.
Yeah, indeed, a very expensive one. Well, Leila, after the first round of talks, we heard contradictory statements coming out of Washington, even from Steve Witkoff, the main American negotiator himself. What does that mean exactly? On the one hand, you have the negotiator, and they said that the talks were positive the first round, but during the last week, we've heard more hawkish type statements, even from him, about Tehran. Your thoughts?
Well, usually when you approach the second round of negotiations, you have to do leverage, be it through threats or hawkish statements that you post in the media, and hope, you cross your fingers that they are going to psychologically impact your opponent or the person that you are negotiating with. And in the case of Iran, they're not deterred that easily. At the end of the day, this is a country that has been doing diplomacy for the longest time. They have what you call most shrewd diplomats. I mean, we've seen them over the past 20 years during previous negotiations as well. They don't mind taking their time, and they don't jeopardize their sovereignty over this matter. With the Americans, the new administration is, I'm going to call it haphazard. I mean, Trump has picked them from I don't know where. They have wiped the floor with international diplomacy. Their comments are incoherent, as you say. They are contradictory. Sometimes they are hawkish, sometimes they are not. At one point or another, they start throwing what you call lies in the media propaganda, that they are negotiating directly with the Iranians. This is not true. They do have a mediator. These are indirect talks. The other thing is that they claim that they are negotiating over the missile system in Iran. Then they say that they are negotiating over the armament of basically factions that are allied with Iran. And this is not true. We heard Iran coming out and saying, with Dr. Arakchi saying it, we're only negotiating over the nuclear system that we have, and we're not going to negotiate anything else. So the Iranians come in, put on the table the offer they have. They already know the points that they want to talk about, and they refuse to talk about anything else. And this is throwing off the Americans, who thought that they can actually bully the Iranians into talking about other things. And this is what causes contradictory statements from the American side.
Okay, well, Reza, how is Iran able to negotiate with an entity that it does not trust? And even since the talks were renewed last week, the U.S. has added even more sanctions on Iran. I mean, what does it mean?
So it's interesting because in the United States, the person who's doing the negotiations with the Iranian foreign minister is a personal friend and representative of the President of the United States instead of the Foreign Minister or the Secretary of State, Mark Rubio. Mm-hmm. Why is he not involved in this negotiation like John Kerry was in 2015? The reason is, in the United States, within the administration of President Donald Trump, there are neocons, hawkish, Zionists who would love nothing more than this deal not to work, this deal to fall through, and for there to be nuclear strikes or some kind of strikes on Iran, because they are strongly allied in ideologically and financially and all other sorts with the Zionist lobby or the Zionist entity that is the United States and Israel. So you have that going on in America. So is Donald Trump really wanting to have a deal so he doesn't get involved in war, so he can focus on other parts of the world? But in his own cabinet, they're causing problems for him. And also you have to remember that Iran, Dr. Arakchi said that today, and it's been reported before, that this case, the whole negotiation of the United States is one of several issues that the foreign ministry is dealing with. Previously, it was like as if the whole Iranian foreign ministry was putting their eggs in the basket of economic success and so forth into the negotiation, so that if it comes out well with the JCPOA, Iran will proceed forward and be prosperous and so forth and so on. In this occasion, Ayatollah Khamenei has specifically advised them, do not put your eggs into one basket, do not make the negotiations with the United States for sanction relief the only plan to remove the economic pressure on the Iranian citizens. Have other means to deal with that, have other plans for that. This is one thing that you're doing. It may work, it may not work. And do not tie everything that's Iranian related, economically and politically to this one negotiation. And I think without the guidance of Ayatollah Khamenei, possibly Iran would have made the same mistake. But because of Ayatollah Khamenei's strong guidance and wisdom, the Iranian foreign ministry, and with Dr. Arakchi's experience being in the JCPOA previously, he has taken that on board, and God willing, he will be better in the negotiations this time.
Okay. Well, Leila, in 2018, then U.S. President Trump left the nuclear deal with Iran. Tehran has made tremendous advancements with its peaceful nuclear technologies since then. Now, some that it could not have done if it was still adhering to the JCPOA. How much do you see this playing a role in why Trump wants a deal with Iran now?
Well, back during Donald Trump's first tenure, from 2016, 2017, all the way to 2020, he withdrew from multiple agreements that actually harmed the American economy. Like the Americans and the Israelis are the same. So it harmed the American economy, and it harmed the United States in general. I'll give you an example. He pulled out in 2017 from the Trans-Pacific Partnership with the Asian countries. That caused the Asian countries to put high tariffs on U.S. products. And this is what led to Trump today raising the tariffs on Asian countries. The same thing with the nuclear deal. He withdrew back in 2018 from the nuclear deal. The Iranians continued. They weren't basically, they were unhinged when it came to that matter. But they didn't put, as your esteemed guest said, they didn't put all their eggs in one basket. They also opened a path with the Europeans. In the past, we saw them negotiate with the Europeans. Today, we see them speak with the Europeans as well, and in parallel with their talks and negotiations with the Americans. And what they do today, what they did today is basically, we saw over the past week, the Iranians are offering investments worth billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars in Iran to the Europeans as well as the Americans. So that means if one side doesn't go with the deal, the other side would go with it, and they will be able to reach somewhere. And this is why I'm saying that the Iranian diplomacy is very consistent. They know what they want, and they know how to take it forward, whereas basically the American administration changes every 4 years, and every single time you have a new president based on the whims that he has and the whims of the Israelis at the time when he takes over power. You see a change in the narrative, and whether they withdraw or not, they are always in cahoots together, the Americans and the Israelis, and this changes basically the position of the Americans every single time. So for the Iranians at the moment, they continue as before. They will continue with their program, they will negotiate with these countries, but that's not going to phase them away from advancing with their peaceful nuclear, enrichment and reaching peaceful nuclear power.
Okay. Well, Reza, the U.S., along with other countries, obviously know that Iran is not seeking to have a nuclear bomb, as has been proven by the IAEA and even U.S. intelligence reports, as you mentioned earlier. So what is the real goal behind these talks for the U.S., in your opinion, at the same time continuing with the claims that Tehran wants a nuke?
I mean, time will tell what the real intention of the United States is, but as I said previously when we had this discussion, you have to look at the DNA of the United States. It hasn't changed over the 40 years. It's been aiming to do regime change in Iran, as they call it, or toppling of a government, as they did in 1953. The reason being is Iran is an independent country. Its foreign policy is neither dominated by the East or dominated by the West, and this was the slogan of the Islamic Revolution. And since the Islamic Revolution, they have lost a country that has massive amounts of resources, natural resources and human resources. During the Shah, the United States will come in, take Iranian military aircraft and go and bomb Vietnam with it. You know, they lost something that is really difficult for them to replace. And so their dream is to have a change of government in Iran, change of a government system. And I think ultimately all of these things that they're doing is always aimed at that. And even the Europeans, we discussed the Europeans, this and that. Europeans are sidekicks to the United States. Even after everything that's happened to them and the betrayal that they've had, and you've seen how they've destroyed the German economy, the United States. They destroyed the Nord Stream pipeline, which gave really cheap gas from Russia to Germany and maintained Germany's industry and economy. They've destroyed, these European countries because of the policies that the United States has had, and yet Europe will not go against the United States. When that happens, we'll see, maybe 10, 20 years when they really decouple. But at the moment, Europe will follow United States dictate. So the real end goal has always been for them to try to remove Iran from the map, the power that it has, because it provides assistance, moral assistance, ideological guidance, and other means to the countries that are resisting the empire. And these are Palestine, Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen. And we can see Yemen, a country that is one of the poorest countries in the world, is standing up to the most powerful superpower economically and military in the world. No other country is able to do that right now. And it's Iran that is giving Yemen this ideological and support that it has. So I think ultimately it's for them to either weaken Iran, subjugate it, or completely change the system. Mm-hmm. So we'll have to see if the negotiations do become successful. That's fine. We can give credit where credit due. But I personally still believe that there's plans behind this to try and weaken Iran like they did in 2015 through negotiations.
Well, Leila, really quick, I mean, the leader of the revolution, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, has said that during the most difficult times, Iran has continued to progress and make technological advancements. The country has learned to be more self-reliant and independent. I mean, with this being the reality, would you say that even if nothing comes from these talks and ultimately sanctions are not removed, that Washington cannot stop Tehran from advancing? And how do you see this reality perhaps fitting into these negotiations?
Well, you have to look at it from this way. Even during the height of the sanctions put on Iran that still are ongoing, Iran managed to not only reach a peaceful nuclear program that the Americans basically are trying to falsely claim that they are creating a nuclear bomb from it, and they have advanced not only military-wise but economic-wise and technological-wise. And we've seen basically that from the hypersonic missiles that they've used, from the type of drones that they've used, they have actually helped the Russians at one point in time under their defense strategy agreement with basically drones. So when you look at the whole situation, the sanctions didn't deter Iran from going forward. How it helps with the negotiations, it's very simple. The Americans, the Israelis, and their allies, they look at Iran with fear at the end of the day, because they know that in the past it had the capacity to actually face them to a certain extent. After all this time and this progress, it has further capabilities, and that actually draws a question mark on their paper. What does Iran hide behind basically all this advancement? We've seen only parts of it, and that gives leverage to the Iranians when they're negotiating on the table. But there's another thing as well. The Americans, as your esteemed guest said, have never hidden their intent to change the regime in Iran, not necessarily wipe Iran from the map, but change the regime inside Iran. This is why they have been building all these military bases around Iran, and Iran has been monitoring that, and it understands the situation. They are chess players at the end of the day, and they do see the next, what we call
I would love
the
to
next
continue
moves,
this discussion, but we're out of time. I appreciate both of you. So sorry to interrupt you, Leila. I appreciate both of you being with us. Reza Vedadi, academic researcher, author out of Muscat. Leila Hatoum, editor-in-chief, MENA Uncensored, out of Beirut. And thank you, viewers, for being with us on another Spotlight. Hope to see you right here next time. Goodbye.